All right, parents, so I am here to talk to you all about this OPVL table, and I'm sure you are like, what's going on? What's happening? Mind blown, right? Okay, so in short, the OPVL table is designed to get your scholar to think like a scientist and to think on a higher level order of thinking. So not just your basic identification things like, oh, the sun is yellow, or, oh, yes, the sun exists in the solar system, but to really dig deep into why we're even researching this information. So if you look at the OPVL table, which you can find in the assignment section, you can find it under the class materials section, and you can find them on Dojo because I had put them on Dojo. Going forward, if you're looking for those class materials, if you go to the assignment section, you will be able to see that all of the resources are attached to the assignment. Also, if you go into the group for your particular scholar, such as Group D, when you go into Group D and you look to the left, there will be classes listed. You click on Science. Once you click on Science, you're able to scroll through the feed. It's just like Facebook or social media. You'll be able to access those resources there as well, okay? So let's jump back into this OPVL descriptors table. So the OPVL descriptors table is a resource that the students can use. It gives the students a bank of questions that they can use every time that we approach anything that has to do with science. Whether it's a question as simple as, is the sun hot? Or if it is answering the questions throughout their experiments as they do experiments. Every time we want to ask ourselves these questions, okay? The greatest value comes from when the scholars ask themselves at least one question from each section of the OPVL table. Right now, I'm having them pull the questions out of the table that they feel they should ask the person who's doing the experiment. For example, we watched a YouTube video of Ryan's color walking experiment, and he showed how color moves through paper towels, or how colors can move. I then, on class time, asked the students, well, what questions do you think were good follow-up questions for Ryan? And some of the students may say, well, did you test it more than one time? Great. That falls under the limitation section on the OPVL table, and we discussed why it's a limitation. Well, if you only test the experiment one time, then that may not happen every single time, right? Because if we only test it one time, we only have one result to lean on. But if we test it multiple times, then we have lots of results to compare and contrast. And it explains what the limitations are to the experiment. Another student brought up, should you be careful with the data that you have? Absolutely, because the data that we have may not be complete, which leads to another section in limitations. Is there anything missing, or has anything been deleted? We didn't get to see in Ryan's experiment how the color moved because they skipped that phase. So we have to kind of assume, and our students are so bright, you guys, they were able to figure that out on their own. So again, these questions on the table are questions that they should be asking. Every time they see an experiment, every time they hear a scientific question, anytime they see something that's science related, even if they're asking you something that's science related at home, if you could practice that OPVL table, it's going to have their thinking through the moon. So when they're ready to take their pre-SATs, and when they're ready to take their ACTs, and when they're ready to take their STAR, they're already conditioned to think outside of the box and to actually use their independent thoughts, because they're so bright. Use their thoughts in order to help them answer the question. So I hope that this is a good tutorial for you parents, letting you know what the OPVL table is and what the expectation is as of right now. As we move through the semester, it's going to get a little bit more busy as far as how we'll be using the OPVL table, but for now, this is what we want to do. Thank you so much, Longhorn parents, and I hope this helps you out. Have a good one.